Mr. Speaker, I would like to ask the Minister three questions. One, basically the questions revolve around, I think what the LO has been asking also. There's still, I don't think the Minister has given enough convincing arguments about what's the hurry, why FICA is needed, and why the judicial review is not needed. Okay. First of all, my first question, for what's the hurry? The Minister has been saying for hours that there are 3 years of consultation has been done, they've done a lot of things and all that. But what we heard here is that those things is about identifying what need to be done and what are the threats, what are the foreign interference threats and all that. But he just now mentioned something that, he also consulted some Singaporeans. But at the end of the day, I think we can all agree that there is little consultation of the general public. Right? And what Minister was trying to say just now is that, seems to be, that's how I interpret it. Seems to be, let's have the law first. And then the Singaporeans will understand the law, that the law is good for them and all that. Hey, that is not the way the law should be implemented, So since there's not enough consultation of the general public, should today the Minister consider postponing the passage of the bill? That's my first question. Second question, is FICA effective in protecting us much more than all the resources and the laws we have before this? We already have them. They are all there, okay? So I ask the Minister, can you point a few examples? Don't quote all the foreign countries' example. Quote Asian countries' examples. Examples of Asian countries that have suffered from foreign interference. Because as a general citizen, or ordinary citizen, watching the TV and all that, all the foreign interference in Taiwan and Australia, for example, seems to be a joke. It was just a theater of actions and all that, but in the end, all the foreign interference seems to be unraveled. So I asked the Minister to quote us some examples and educate us. And the third question is, we spend a lot of time talking about judicial review. What the Minister seems to be saying is, trust me, trust me. I asked two questions with regards to that. The tribunal is appointed by the Minister, right, under this FICA. 2, if judicial review can be done in other countries, even with respect to national security issues, why can't we do it? Thank you.
Well, so I'll understand to the extent that I'll answer to the extent that I understand the questions. Now, on the first point, what is the hurry? I assume now, Mr. Leong, we are talking about the same legislation, because the legislation you talked about just now seemed to be a very different one. Do you understand that almost everything you said earlier about this bill is actually untrue and inaccurate?
Minister, you want me to respond now?
Yes, please.
Okay. What I've said is according to the legal advice that my party had gotten from senior lawyers. Okay? So you say those are not accurate, they are not right. Then that is exactly what we have been saying, or I have been saying in this parliament. The discussion and the debate in this parliament actually should not be conducted in a way that is just interpretation by you. Let's have a committee, let the expert trash it out, and then bring it to this main chamber. We must well call this legislative chamber legal chamber. That is, the legal experts that are advising me disagree with you.
If I can request both members to direct your comments.
Yeah, I'm sorry, sir. Sir, can I ask through you for Mr. Leong to show me which clause allows for detention without trial in FICA, please, as he suggested? Detention without trial, trial in absence, and no judicial review for such detention. Since his senior lawyers have advised it, he should be able to tell me which clause.
Mr. Leong.
Speaker, there the minister go again. I'm not going to go into all this legal interpretation. If we want to argue, we argue out of this. Okay, but most of the things that I've said is in Section 99. Okay, and I didn't say detention without trial. Okay, I say he can arrest you, of course, through a due process, but after he arrests you, you're not available and all that. Those are provided in Section 99. Okay, but anyway, I'm not going down that line. Minister, let's go on with the other questions. Thank you.
Minister.
Sir, I was listening very carefully when Mr. Leong spoke, and my blood pressure went up quite significantly when he said, detention without trial. That phrase is there. I'm sure it is captured in the handset. Detention without trial, trial in absence, absentia, and no judicial review. So I just order, and the person is arrested and detained, and he's got no rights of review. And now Mr. Leong says clause 99. He reads English. I read English. I can tell him that clause 99, neither clause 99 nor any other clause in the bill has detention without trial. Not just that, he says, there he goes again. I mean, when Mr. Leong refers to provisions in SICA, I ask him which provisions. When Mr. Leong says you can detain without trial, he says it. I ask him which clauses. So we will take it that his position is clause 99 allows the minister to detain without trial. And I can assure the House he is reading something which I don't know anything about.
Mr. Leong, would you like to respond to that?
I will respond.
Minister, carry on.
Thank you, sir. Now, I didn't say, sir, so I don't want words put in my mouth. I didn't say there was little consultation with Singaporeans, nor did I say let's have the law first and then go and explain to Singaporeans. I think I said a number of things in context, and I would ask Mr. Leong not to misquote me. I didn't say it in those terms, nor did I mean it in those terms. Now, the second question is FICA effective in protecting us, given all the other resources that the government has at its disposal? And Mr. Leong says, give us examples of Asian countries which have suffered such an attack. So this, again, I mean, I'm not usually at a loss for words, but is the suggestion that somehow because we are Asian countries will not be affected by foreign interference? Is that the suggestion? I would suggest Mr. Leong reads the French report and that he reads the Select Committee report. And I can tell him in the annexes we gave out this morning or this afternoon, while the names are not there, some of those countries are Asian. And it's absolutely shocking to hear that a suggestion of foreign interference in Taiwan and Australia are jokes. I think in the case of Taiwan, of course, it's a territory, or it is said to be a territory. In the case of Australia, it's a country. Those places will be very surprised that someone in Singapore thinks the attacks on them, for which Australia has passed legislation, very draconian legislation on reporting requirements. I said this afternoon, you are an ex-parliamentarian. Your obligations are very onerous. I think no one who knows the facts will say what Mr. Leong has said, that it's a joke that these places have suffered foreign interference. Whether they suffered it from the countries they named, we don't express a view, because it's not our business to go and say they were attacked by X or Y or Z. But all the evidence that was laid out, this afternoon I talked about an Australian parliamentarian who was said to have been suborned by foreign money and taking a statement on South China Sea that is contrary to his own party's position. What do you call that? When we say Singapore itself has been subject to foreign interference recently, are you saying that what we are saying is untrue? There were reports that the entire Indian electric infrastructure was brought down as a result of an attack from outside of India. There are reports of foreign-inspired attacks in a number of Asian countries, which I think you can see both in the select committee reports and if you read the newspapers. The third point he makes is, the judge is appointed by the minister, and basically the approach is trust me. No. The tribunal is appointed by the president on the advice of the cabinet. It's headed by a high court judge who has security of tenure, and he is a judge of the Supreme Court. He does not owe any obligation to the government. Mr. Leong asks, why is it possible that other countries can have judicial review and we can't? Well, I gave an answer. It is a question of what those countries can do, and if you look at New Zealand, they have not had to face very severe threats. For the first time now, they are facing different types of threats. In the absence of an Internal Security Act, they had to allow this man to be free for years outside. And one day he goes into a supermarket and knives people. Do you want to wait for that? If you take France, I said 80% of the attackers were known to the security forces. 97% were on their radar. How many people have been killed? I said there were 22 incidents, including the Charlie Hebdo incident. Scores of people have been killed. The entire country brought to a standstill. Paralyzed with fear. Yeah, these are choices. There are trade-offs. So I explained the trade-offs we make. Thank you, sir.
Mr. Leong Mun Wai.
So I'd like to clarify further with the minister. One is that the appointment of the tribunal is recommended by the cabinet, right, to the president. In that case, the president has the power to reject the appointment. First question. Second question is, just now I asked for some example of Asian countries that are affected by foreign interference. I'm looking for examples where there are more permanent damage, like really affected a national election and things like that. But what the minister has pointed is just one senator, being found to have connections with a country. Those things, in the normal course of our security, operations, we can identify already. Do we need an extra law? Secondly is that Minister talked about the Indian electric infrastructure and all that. Similarly, our healthcare system data was compromised some years ago. Is FICA needed before we can prevent all these things? Or even with FICA, are we going to be able to prevent these kind of events? Minister, please.
So, I don't intend to keep repeating my opening speech. I think Mr. Leong has got to, I would suggest he goes and listens again or reads, and the answers are all there. And it's not just one senator. I suggest he reads the material that has been given. Thank you, sir.
Thanks, Speaker. I want to ask the Minister, is he going to answer my question on the appointment of the tribunal?
Minister.
Sir, the position is clear. When the law says on the recommendation or advice of the cabinet, then the president acts in accordance with the advice given by cabinet. The point I made is that the High Court judge who will head the tribunal is independent, has security of tenure, is someone whose job is in the Supreme Court. His primary appointment.
His first appointment was approved by the president.
And his primary appointment, the first appointment, is approved by the president. So let's get that clear. Thank you, sir.